Is Main Phase 2 coming to Duel Links? Main Phase 2 has been leaked in the data mined gameplay files. This is all we have. This is all we know. Let's talk about Main Phase 2.
There can only be one winner, and you're looking at him. Let's go.
Main Phase 2 leak. What does this mean? Yes, it's been leaked. It's not an official announcement. This does not mean that it's being added to the main duel mode. I'll talk about if I think it will be towards the end. This could just be for an event, possibly. In the past, maybe you didn't play Duel Links, but they tested out 5,000 life for just a month, and Cyberstein ran rampant during that month. Not cool. And also, maybe it could be a skill. A skill that gives you Main Phase 2? That's insane. Let's talk about the perceived benefits of no Main Phase 2. Now, if you play TCG and Duel Links, maybe you're very familiar with having it and not having it. You can enjoy Main Phase 2 in TCG, while also enjoy not having it in Duel Links. So this video is not about being against or for Main Phase 2. We're just talking about the benefits of both and the community feedback, and then what I really think towards the end. So the no Main Phase 2 benefit: faster duels. It could be more simple, not always though, and that could be seen as a downside possibly. And this could lead to the discussion of why more phases? Why not have a second battle phase? Why not a Main Phase 3? Where do we stop? Maybe Main Phase 2 is just an outdated mechanic of Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, or just Yu-Gi-Oh! In general. Maybe we shouldn't even have phases. Maybe we should always be in a phase of main and battle phase where I could summon, attack, summon, set in any way I want. Not having Main Phase 2 is different. Not just easier, you can say it's easier, but it is different than not having Main Phase 2. You have to overcommit in just one phase. Because there's one battle phase, you don't get to have a Main Phase 2 follow-up. Usually in the TCG, people are going to check for your back row in the battle phase, and then they're going to make their real play, their real synchro, their real exceed, their real summon, their real sets afterward. But in Duel Links, it's high risk, high reward. You have to make and commit everything to that single main phase. You might see that as a downside, though. So cards like these have high reward and big risk. They can create really fun and explosive gameplay if you spell explosive correctly. 4-star Ladybug of Doom on flip would destroy all level 4 monsters on the field. This used to be good back in the day, so you wouldn't know. In TCG, you could swing, it flips up, it destroys a monster, who cares? You then summon your other level 4 in Main Phase 2. In Duel Links, you'd have to go all in on it. You have to go all in onto Drowning and Wall D. These cards are already not that popular in Duel Links, and you would just make them worse by adding a Main Phase 2. With Main Phase 2, traps possibly become less effective. And with the above statement, there's less pressure to have insanely overpowered traps. So if traps become worse, then don't we have to have ridiculously crazy traps to make them better? Since you could check for a trap in the battle phase, then make a play in Main Phase 2. Also, without Main Phase 2, you have to put a lot of thought into holding onto these cards during the battle phase. So, for example, if you have a back row potentially that I could protect myself from with Lancer, Book of Moon, you Karma Cut, I Book of Moon, I could safely hold on to the Book or Lance. It's not even a decision. It's hold, attack, you didn't have anything, I set. But if without Main Phase 2, I have to think, if I don't set my Book of Moon, I'm not going to have it during your turn. So do I want it potentially for my battle phase, or do I want it for your turn, where in the TCG, you will have it for your own battle phase and for your opponent's turn? Without Main Phase 2, it's possible to have strategies of destroying back row in the battle phase. You're never going to really set your back row in Main Phase 1. So cards like Green Kappa that used to be good, or maybe a little good back in the day, on flip it would destroy 2 back row. Imagine me setting this turn 1, you attack into it with no back row, it does nothing. But because you have to commit to your back row before going to the battle phase, I get to get you with the Green Kappa. Also, cards we don't have yet, like Malevolent Catastrophe. You attack, I destroy all back row cards on the field. This could be a really cool card to add to Duel Links, which we may get soon. I thought we even had this already. Now, what about benefits of having Main Phase 2? It could be more skillful. This is probably the biggest argument of having main phase 2. A lot of people believe that with a more skillful main phase 2, more decision making, more depth, that it is going to be better for the game. But it can also make the game slower, which may make the game less fun. Who wants to wait during another phase on your opponent's turn when you just want to play the game? So on top of that, add more depth, increase the skill ceiling of the game. Now, for good or bad, you could feel out the back row, learn restraints, be rewarded for not overcommitting. I feel like overcommitment is the number one thing you teach someone in the TCG. You'd kind of do it in Duel Links also, but in the TCG, everyone's gonna, or the new players are gonna summon everything, attack with everything, and get blown out by a Mirror Force, which is like Drowning Mirror Force, or the Wall of Disruption. And instead, you want to teach them to take it easy, poke the battle phase, feel out the back row, then make a big play in main phase 2. You could exceed in synchro in main phase 2 after attacking. That is part of the more skillful, in-depth strategy. It allows you to set up more defense if you feel Duel Links is too quick and aggressive. Maybe Duel Links is rewarding too much of an aggressive playstyle, and maybe a more defensive playstyle would feel more fulfilling and more rewarding with a main phase 2. The battle phase on your turn could be more rewarding through any effect that searches or special summons during the battle phase, so that you can use that card you searched for in the battle phase in main phase 2, so you could synchro or exceed with the monster you special summoned during the battle phase, but now in main phase 2. It could make a lot of deck types and cards much better. And with this said, I really can't think, besides what we talked about earlier with the Wall of Disruption and Drowning Mirror Force, I'm really not sure if a specific deck just becomes way worse from the inclusion of main phase 2. I feel more so that decks become better instead of decks becoming worse. Specific cards will become worse, but not the decks as a whole. Please let me know in the comments if you have any ideas of decks that just become better. Now, Cowboy for game, jokingly. Konami, don't ban me. This is just a joke. You could deal your damage in the battle phase, then in main phase 2, blast them for 400 damage. That was a big play in the TCG. A deck like Gladiators. Darius will summon from the deck in the battle phase to summon a monster from the grave, then you get to fusion summon with it or exceed with it in main phase 2 if it doesn't have that restriction. A quest gets summoned in the battle phase, add a trap from the graveyard, you get to set it in main phase 2. Maybe Gladiators will be a top tier deck, and I know there are so many Gladiator fans out there. Secutor. This was a really fun card to set up. It was huge risk, huge reward. I remember the discussions, the debates back in the day on whether you should play this or not. The payoff was so big if you did play it and it worked out. It's a tiny monster that needs to be prepped up, and then if you successfully attack, you get a huge payoff in main phase 2 by being able to make a huge fusion play. Now here are random card examples of a card we already have that's just not good, and I did use this in the TCG. It was good. Flamebell Fire Dog, 1900 attack. You destroy a monster by battle. You get to summon a monster from the deck. What I would do is I would summon a level 4 tuner from the deck. Main phase 2, boom, I get to synchro. But it's garbage because of no main phase 2. Shura the Blue Flame. This was a top tier card in Blackwings. We have it in Duel Links. It's not good. You would destroy a monster by battle with Shura, then you would special summon your Gale from the deck, and then with Gale and Shura, main phase 2, you now get to synchro. So we had this reward system for successfully attacking and destroying a monster by battle, which felt a lot of fun, and we don't really have that in Duel Links. And then we have cards like Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree, which literally says on the card, can only be targeted by card effects in your main phase 2. So this is balanced around the fact that we have a main phase 2. We can't get this card in Duel Links. It would be too broken. Because when you play it in TCG, you are now not allowed to enter your own main phase 2 unless you want to be targeted, while your opponent gets to have the benefits of main phase 2, which essentially balances a card like Leo, the Keeper of the Sacred Tree. Cards like Gores, which are incredibly powerful. We might have more room to release way more powerful cards in Duel Links if we're allowed to have a main phase 2. Gores, you attack, and then after dealing damage, your opponent drops a Gores on the field. 2700 attack, 2500 defense, and then it summons a token. equal to the damage you dealt. So everyone from the TCG, they have the mindset of you attack with the smaller monster first before the big one, or you lose to a Gores, because they'll summon the token and the Gore's bigger than your smaller monster. If you mess up your attack order, not cool. But in Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG, you can deal with the Gore's main phase 2 maybe, Exceed, Synchro, Pop It, set up more defense. In Duel Links, we can't have this. It's too broken. I can't attack you, you drop a Gore's, then I have to end my turn, and then you beat me with Gore's. That's way too good. So we may never see cards like this if we don't actually add main phase 2. And for more of having a good battle phase of searching, Fire Fist, you deal battle damage, you search for a card, you then get to use it in main phase 2. So a lot of decks and cards become better or at least acceptable to be released in Yu-Gi-Oh! If we have a main phase 2. So I'm going to quickly talk about the philosophy of a good game. I think we could all agree that harder does not always just inherently equal better. I think we can all say that more enjoyable equals better. There has to be a balance of skill and difficulty and accessibility and annoyances. You don't want to continually have annoyance on top of annoyance on top of annoyance. For an example of what I'm really against in Duel Links is I dread the day where we have to place our cards in specific columns. That's going to be dreadful. I think that's just an annoying mechanic to make duels longer. And yeah, it makes it more difficult, but way less fun. So hopefully Duel Links forgoes the column mechanic, because I really don't want to be manually placing. In real life, it's fine. You could quickly place, but to have to choose my spot every time, I'm not okay with that. So that's just an example I just threw in. So back in the day, people were discussing League of Legends versus Dota and Heroes of New Earth. Everyone was saying League of Legends is too casual. In Dota, you could hide in the jungle behind trees, you could cut them down, hide in little choke points, and people would say it's harder, so it has to be better, and because it's more skilled, it's better. In Dota, you could kill your own minions, denying your opponent the experience and gold from killing the minion themselves. But that's not the case. I'm not saying this is worse or better. We have to have the difference between something is different versus being more skilled or better. Dota is different. This does not make the game worse or better to have these mechanics. So that's something you really need to drive home with main phase 2 or no main phase 2. Just as TCG versus Duel Links. Harder mechanics does not equal better or more skillful. So a quick Twitch chat community response. Do they want main phase 2 in Duel Links? The majority said no, and this was after the discussion of all this. I think we had a poll much earlier into the stream where a lot more people voted no, but after discussing, it seemed like more people were open for the idea. What are they thinking? So, pro main phase 2 opinions, community responses, this is how I envision those players of what they're saying. They think the skill gap, they want a higher skill gap because they hate losing to brainless players, so there you go. And bring a bigger differential between good players and bad players. That seems like the biggest thing for pro main phase 2, a more difficult game. It could be the higher skilled players are going to be more rewarded. There are cards we can't get. We kind of showed that off. Different game mechanic to mix things up. People like change. He believes that it will promote deck type diversity. You let me know if you agree with that. Make the game nice and slow without the kappa. Some people like a slower game. You get to reset the board if you get Treacherous Trap Hold. He thinks getting blown out by Treacherous is not fun, and Konami did semi-limit that card. They do agree that that card is too powerful to be unlimited, and let's make the card even worse. Let's not get blown out by those cards. This player is a fan of Gladiator Beasts, knowing that inherently Gladiators were designed around having a main phase 2. And he thinks that there's more comeback potential if we have a main phase 2. Now we have anti-main phase 2. We have an angry Doge because I feel the opinions of anti-main phase 2, they are more aggressive. Some of them are along the lines of, I'm gonna quit if you bring main phase 2. Hopefully they could have an open mind though and not get too angry. And not everyone's like this. It's just it's a little joke. It's a joke. He says main phase 2 would take too long. He thinks it detracts from Duel Links' identity of not having main phase 2. Most people want to play Duel Links because it's casual, more faster. Main phase 2 will just make games longer, drag out. It's like a more depth response to takes too long. This might kill the decks that I spent valuable time and money on. He's afraid that the game's going to change too much. He doesn't want his whole investment to go to waste, possibly. And we have Bez thinking the timer may already be an issue. Why, with main phase 2, with the timer, the game just doesn't properly support main phase 2. Duel Links kind of works really well without main phase 2. Why fix something that's not broken, right? No one's really talking about the absence of main phase 2 until it was leaked that we may be getting it. It's not like we're all missing it or thinking about it all the time. The game just works without it. Why change things up for no reason? We believe someone believes it's too disruptive, would shake up the meta too much. Why play Duel Links if I could play TCG? TCG is a different game. I could play both at the same time. I'm not playing one over the other. If I want main phase 2, I could play TCG. That's what he thinks. So if we were to talk about the impact of main phase 2 on just the current tier list, where we don't add any new decks and we don't change any cards in their decks, so what's existing right now in the tier list and what they're playing, just like a previous comment, you could have better recovery from a Treacherous, where they will possibly feel forced to use it in the battle phase. The main phase 2, you could do a follow-up. You have Book of Moon would be used more in the battle phase to counter back row on your turn instead of setting it to ensure you could use it on your opponent's turn. Otherwise, with main phase 2, you can use it in the battle phase and then just set it for main phase 2. Duels may become more aggressive as you could set up a defensive Synchro Exceed like Dweller or Spirit Dragon. If you don't want to risk a lethal play because they're playing hand traps, you're going to have to make your Dweller or Spirit Dragon in main phase 1 in Duel Links. So it does go both ways. We did say that Duel Links is possibly more aggressive, but maybe it might be more defensive. Who knows? If no cards themselves get changed, I feel like it would not have that much of a massive impact on the playstyle of these decks. Really think about it. How would Blue Eyes really play that much differently? Maybe we would see more Heliopoluses in main phase 2 or Spirit Dragon in main phase 2. Possibly. Otherwise, I feel like the tier list among just these decks, it would possibly just stay the same. Now, what do I think? What does Dkayed think? Quick background is that I've played both TCG and Duel Links extensively, and I've enjoyed both extensively. As a content creator and not a player, I would only be for main phase 2 being added to the game as it gives me more to teach. I do believe it does add more depth. I love change as a content creator. The more change, the more content, but not at the cost of losing players. If we were going to lose players over this, get main phase 2 away from me, keep it the way it is, and I don't want to lose anyone. Now, as a competitive player, I believe I'd prefer main phase 2. But for enjoyment, I think the game is more enjoyable without main phase 2. So with main phase 2, I also believe the game is more accessible, which does result in more players. So even if the current players were to not quit, it may be difficult to get new players into the game because the game may seem too overwhelming. Oh, I got a main phase 2 also in my battle phase. I just wanted to end my turn after attacking. Now, we did another poll. Should main phase 2 be tested in-game? Just test it. Be open to the idea of maybe you might be wrong. Maybe you're against main phase 2, but if they were to test it, just like they did with 5,000 life points, then you're willing to say or test it out yourself and go, you know what, I was wrong. Main phase 2 actually makes the game a lot more fun. In the end, I don't think it's coming. I really don't think it's coming. Why am I making a whole video about it? It's a really good conversation. It did get leaked. That is a fact. It's leaked. I think it's just for an event. I don't even think it'll be tested in PvP. This is just my prediction. They could surprise me and actually bring it or actually test it. I just don't think so. If I had to bet money, it's not coming to the game, to the main duel mode. It won't even be tested in PvP, and it may just be an event. Thank you for the YouTube video. Appreciate you very much. Have at it, fools.